The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast and off in Australia. It looks like we have people joining us from all over the globe today, India, Australia, Russia. So thank you all for joining us wherever you are. My name is Michelle Avila, and I'm going to be your moderator today. So thank you for joining us for Beyond Lean Advanced Principles of Productivity, a part of the 2014 Hypertherm webinar series. Before we get going, we still have some people joining us on the line, so I'm going to give them a couple of minutes and go through some quick background information about Hypertherm. We are based in Hanover, New Hampshire. We have approximately 1,400 associates around the globe. We are an associate-owned company, which means that all of us that work here own the company and devote more engineering resources to industrial cutting research and development than any other company in the world. We currently have more than 111 cutting patents and are working to continuously improve the cut quality, productivity, operating cost, and reliability of our system. Our products at Hypertherm include plasma, both handheld and mechanized plasma, laser and water jet cutting systems, CNC and torch height controls, our CAD/CAM nesting software, and consumables for both Hypertherm and non-Hypertherm cutting systems. And our two presenters today, we have Charlie Hackett, leader of Hypertherm's corporate improvement team. Charlie is a master black belt who works to coach the entire organization here at Hypertherm and fellow black belts on the principles of continuous improvement. Charlie has a diverse background with a PhD in mechanical engineering and more than 15 years of operations and R&D experience in the metal cutting, spraying, and welding fields. His interests in Lean and Six Sigma, they range from reducing waste throughout the business to creating cultural change among teams to application of statistics and everyday problem solving. And we were just talking before the webinar, Charlie tells me he's been at Hypertherm for nearly 20 years. So quite a record with Hypertherm. Also joining us, we are excited to welcome Kevin Duggan, president of Duggan Associates and founder of the Institute for Operational Excellence. Kevin is a renowned speaker, author, educator, and expert on operational excellence. He is an international training and advisory firm is what he does with his company that assists companies in applying advanced lean techniques. He is the author of 3 books on the subject, including Design for Operational Excellence, a breakthrough strategy for business growth. In addition, he is the author of one of SF Journal magazine's most popular articles of 2013 on operational efficiency. And he has helped dozens of companies around the globe improve their operations, companies like Caterpillar, Pratt & Whitney, Singapore Airlines, FMC, and the list goes on and on. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Kevin, who I believe is going to get us started.
Well, thanks, Michelle, and welcome everybody to this webinar. I'm pretty excited because we're going to be talking about what I consider to be one of the world's best manufacturing companies located here in the United States. And I'll define what I mean when I say best. You know, as I write in about operational excellence and research it further and help companies, I constantly say that Hypertherm is a company that should be on CNN because we always hear about the doom and gloom of manufacturing here in the United States. Yet there's this little gem called Hypertherm up in Hanover, New Hampshire, that is doing some really exciting things and some really breakthrough ways of thinking. They've broken some paradigms, which has resulted in a great success of top-line business for a manufacturer here in the States. It's a model that other companies can learn from, and that's why we're having the webinar today, is to learn, quite frankly, what is Hypertherm doing right? So let's go, let's start, we can talk about, you know, why would I say such things? What makes Hypertherms unique? You know, what kinds of things do that? Well, for example, Hypertherm makes these large, high-tech products. They're plasma cutting torches. They have PC boards, transformers, wire up harnesses, intensive hand assemblies. And they're made here in the United States with a mostly U.S. supply chain. And not only are they made in the U.S., and Charlie will talk further about their supply chain, but just as an intro, while they're made in the U.S., over 20% of the products they make in New Hampshire get sold into low-cost countries. That's a reversal of what most U.S. manufacturers do today. So here's a company in the United States building a very labor-intensive, high-tech product, big, bulky, heavy, and they're selling it and shipping it into low-cost countries, as well as exporting to Europe as well. Beyond that, they've never had a layoff. And I'm not sure how many companies in the world could raise their hands and say, yeah, we haven't had a layoff either. But here's one that's never had a layoff since they began over 40 years ago. Uniqueness to Hypertherm is things like there's no production control department. And this is a 1,400-plus associate company, and there's no production control saying what product needs to get built next. And of course, a visit to Hypertherm will also realize there's not much expediting going on either, and there's not a lot of management telling everybody what to do. They did something unique. Most U.S. manufacturers, when they run out of labor, they outsource, so they send parts out, and we're just going to do our core competency. Hypertherm said, let's just build a school instead, and we'll take local labor and give them jobs. They gave jobs right back to the community and kept their products and their technology in-house. And they have shared rewards for all their associates. Beyond all their business performance, they continue to win the best place to work in New Hampshire. They just won again in 2013. They've won 7 of the last 11 times. And they also have been in the top 20 or so for the United States in the past years. So it's a manufacturing company, and it's the best place to work. Finally, they've built, constructed a 160,000 square foot new facility that's green, all right? What it means is how many companies are building new factories in the United States in this economy, and the mantra is usually, let's fix this place, no bricks and mortar. So it's an intriguing company for sure, and they've done a lot of great things in the business world for manufacturing. And let's talk more about what makes them different. What I like to say is Hypertherm has gone beyond the traditional lean principles that we've known to grow and love, and they've leveraged their manufacturing operation for top-line business growth. And this is pretty unique because, as we'll see from the next slide, we've learned lean is about eliminating, using the minimum equipment, parts, materials, space, processing, which is absolutely essential. That's the definition we learned. The next definition from Mr. Womack, talks about, let's pursue on the elimination of waste. The end goal, what we thought about lean was, let's be efficient in what we do. Let's have the cost minimized. Here, Hypertherm's goal was, let's grow the business. So on the traditional lean concepts, when we talk about the waste, and of course we all know the 7 waste, and by the way, the +1, the misspent talent, was one place where Hypertherm really excels. They really utilize the talent of all their associates. So when we look about what the waste are and what's happening, Hypertherm's really took a step back, and they kind of realized, geez, this kind of go out and seek eliminate waste over time, if we try to make an improvement someplace, eliminate some waste, make an improvement, sustain that improvement, here's what happens. Over time, the best we could do trying to improve and sustain would be a slow, steady climb on this continuous improvement journey. And that's what we've learned. It's a journey. It's just an endless journey of eliminating waste. Well, hold on a minute. There's another way to look at this. Every journey needs a destination. And instead of going out there and saying, well, we're going to go out and eliminate waste every day, we're going to set a destination that's going to move Hypertherm from point A to point B. And that destination is operational excellence, which means all of our improvements, everything we do should focus on having each and every associate be able to see the lead flow back to the customer and fix that flow before it breaks down. That was their destination. We're not about getting better every day. We're about getting to this place where all our associates know where the flow of product, the flow of value of building our products is on time to what our customers want. And when interruptions begin to happen in that flow, our associates who build the product will know that and fix that without management. Powerful, powerful concept, powerful stuff, and they're doing it. How? Let's talk about their process. Their process they followed was one that we commonly teach for operational excellence. I'm sorry, missed my slide there, but they actually do a jump. The result of knowing where you're going is you'll get there quicker. And that's the premise here. If you know exactly what your destination is, you're just not going to try to get better and try to improve and sustain. What you're going to do is move the company from point A to B by knowing what point B is. In this case, each and every associate can see the flow of value and fix it before it breaks down. The process to do that is a little involved. First, we have to design lean flow using lean guidelines. And this is one place that a lot of companies I've worked with just skip the first step. They go right to Kaizen, brainstorming. They'll make a current state map, value stream map, and they'll look at all the opportunities. Then they'll start trying to check off, oh, let's go attack this, let's go attack this, let's go attack this. We'll never achieve operational excellence with that methodology. And here, as Hypertherm has done, they have to take a step back and say, how do we design lean flow? What are the guidelines we should be using? It's like going and getting an education from a university and then going back and applying that education to their operation. So how do we design a lean flow? Then how do we implement it? How do we make that flow visual and create standard work for the flow, which means not at what happens as we build the product, but what happens between the processes. Then they make that abnormal flow visual, which means, hey, all of our associates should be able to see it. Create standard work for when abnormal flow begins to occur. What do we do when things start to go wrong? And then we teach our associates to maintain and improve that flow. The end goal being to free management up to work on offense activities or business growth activities. And I got to tell you, that's just what they've done, and the results are tremendous. With that, let's talk about the first few principles and how they're applied at Hypertherm with the help of Charlie Hackett. So, Charlie, I've talked enough. I've talked about the premise and all the great things you guys do. I think what our audience would really like to hear is how. How do you do these things up at Hypertherm? So let's start with the first couple. You know, how did you guys go about designing lean flows and implementing those lean flows?
Thanks, Kevin, and it's a real pleasure to join you here today. I'd like to share a couple examples of those steps that Kevin just outlined. And the factory that we built and finished and began moving into in 2013, the new 160,000 square foot facility, provides a really good example of that. When we had the opportunity to move two of our business teams into this facility, we looked at designing our value streams on three different levels. First, from a whole facility perspective, how would we move materials in and out of the facility? How would we transmit information between this new plant and our existing facilities? We needed to be able to coordinate and synchronize ourselves, our systems, and our value streams. The second level that we looked at was the value stream design. So within the facility, how would we move materials between value streams so that it could reach our order fulfillment organization and eventually our customers. And then finally, I think in probably the most traditional design aspect is we looked at how to design our cells for flow and connecting process steps. So really looking at it from a very holistic perspective, from the facility, the value stream, and the cell level, and using those lean flow design guidelines that are so important.
Okay.
What's important to us is really looking at how we connect the customer with our producer. And just in this picture here, it really is reinforcing how tight that link needs to be effective, and also how we really try to eliminate our management from the process. We want our producers, the operators, the assemblers, to understand exactly what customer demand is and be able to react to it as quickly as possible, because our customers are looking for our products when they need them and at the right value. And we try to ship the majority of our products within 24 hours of order. So it's really incumbent upon us to make sure that we're responsive from an operations perspective. One of the ways we do that in particular, I'm just going to comment on our manual cutting systems and some of our consumables, is that we take that first step of designing our value streams with a finished goods strategy. So for these two types of products, we designed our value streams to have a supermarket of finished goods that we would build to stock. And when those supermarkets are depleted by customer demand, that information gets conveyed right to the cells in which the products are produced. In some cases, that's conveyed using a card, like a Kanban card. Some places it's conveyed electronically. Either way, we're trying to make sure that information gets to the associates that will be producing the product as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Then we have a variety of visual systems that we use in our factory. And the one that I'm going to spend some time talking about in a little bit is called a thermometer board. And I've just got an example of that here, where the cards are placed in a fashion so that every associate in the cell, and ideally any associate in the company, can see what needs to be made next. What do they need to work on next? That's the whole intent of this type of visual signal, so that we can communicate, again, what the customer's demand is to the producing associate as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Then once that product is built, it goes into our finished goods supermarket and is ready to complete the cycle so that it can be delivered to our customer. So our entire system is engineered to work with virtually no management intervention. And really that's a theme that I want to keep coming back to, is we really want our leaders to be out of the manufacturing, day-to-day manufacturing process, so they can focus on business growth and the elements, strategic elements that are embedded in there. Another one of the design principles that we really take advantage of is that of flow, of connecting process steps together. So in this case, you can see on the left-hand side, there is one of the thermometer boards that represents single point scheduling. So we only schedule one point in the value stream instead of handing out a schedule to every part or multiple points in the value stream. This reduces redundancy, it reduces confusion, makes it it's more straightforward as to who needs to work on what and when. And then when possible, we co-locate or bring our process steps close together. That allows good communication between team members, promotes the flow of material, and diminishes the lead time in the value stream. So really, I just spent a couple of moments reviewing some of the examples of how we have designed our lean flow using lean guidelines and implementing that. Of course, it's hard to convey that sometimes with a couple of pictures and slides, but I think those are some pretty good examples.
Sure. And the key here being that, I mean, it's certainly common for people to set up supermarkets and stuff, but when you're tapping right to your finished goods strategy, there's no management intervention, filtering orders, or anything. If there's any leveling or anything that needs to happen, it's done right at the people who build the product level. And I think that was a very key point. Let's go on to the next one. How do we make that lean flow visual? And certainly one of the most difficult things in manufacturing is what we call standard work for flow and making abnormal flow visual. These are kind of challenging, and a lot of companies haven't progressed that far. How have you done them at Hypertherm?
Great question. It's important for us, as we've come to appreciate, that the visuals tell us when flow is working and when flow is breaking down. Because if we can tell when flow is breaking down, that gives us an opportunity to correct it and ultimately learn from it so that it won't happen again. So our visual systems are for our production associates first and foremost. And some of the key things that we think about when we're designing them is, does this tell me what I need to work on next? And does it tell me if I'm on schedule, and are my teammates on schedule? Because if I'm not, then they may be able to help me, or if they're not, I may be able to assist them. And finally, we apply something that you, Kevin, have taught us. It's called the visitor test. And it's really a pretty difficult test to apply. It means that anyone, could come into our factory and stand near one of the production cells and be able to answer those questions. Do I know what I need to work on next? And am I on schedule or behind schedule? And this means that someone could do that without asking any questions, but purely based on the visual systems that are there in front of them. So that's a really, I think it's a very high standard. It's one that we're striving for. I wouldn't say that we necessarily achieve that, but it's one that we've set out there as a goal, that we try to be really clear with our visual signals. And ultimately, what we're trying to drive towards is that that concept of a self-healing flow or self-healing value streams, where any interruption is detected very quickly and is fixed before, without needing any management intervention. And that's one of the keys. In fact, some of our value stream teams have begun to actually measure the number of leader or management interventions and are trying to actively eliminate that.
That's a real good metric for success right there, is how much management does it take to deliver products to the customer. But go on, explain some of these other visuals you use.
Right, so I talked earlier just briefly about something we at Hypertherm call a thermometer board. And these are tools that we use, the visual systems that we use to connect our customer demand to our production. And we try to use these where we can't necessarily locate process steps right next to each other. So they're really instrumental when there's a little bit of separation or distance between the successive steps in our value stream. And they're really based heavily on color, and again, trying to take advantage of color because, frankly, our eyes are the senses that can gather the most information of any of our 5 senses. So here are 2 examples, and I'm just going to go to a page now that shows how these are set up and how they work. So again, this is a thermometer board, and it uses visual signals or visual systems to help communicate demand when process steps are separated. The board is separated into 3 zones. There's a red, yellow, and a green zone. The red zone would mean that if there's a tag, a visual signal that falls into the red zone, it means take action. If it's in the green zone, then that means that things are as expected. And yellow is more of a warning zone. It's a transition between the green and the red. And we teach our associates, all of our associates know that they are reading these boards from top to bottom and left to right. So as the signal cards return to the production cell, again, how they're transmitted is generally either through a card that travels physically or through an electronic signal. When that card comes back, they're first placed at the bottom of the board, and eventually, if production is not keeping up, they'll start to move up into the yellow and red zones. The number of cards on the board represents the number of the quantity of finished goods that we would hold in finished goods, or the quantity of finished goods or goods that we'd hold in an interim process step. So that the more cards that are on the board, the less goods are in the value stream. And so we really want to pay attention to managing that. And this system provides the associates with the information they need to do it. In cases where we have a lot of product on the board, a lot of signals on the board, that means that our product is depleted and we need to take action. And we design these communication systems so that roughly 95% of the time we shouldn't see this situation where there are a lot of cards in the red or warning zone. By and large, we're managing in the yellow and the green on a day-to-day basis. So for example, in this case, where most of the signal cards are back on the signal board, it means our finished goods is almost empty, and that's something we really need to take action on.
And Charlie, just to be clear on this, on your visual boards, I know we show finished goods, and I know you mentioned they're all throughout the factory, but Hypertherm produces, in these systems, they produce a high mix of products. You're not just building the same product every day in, day out. You're building mixed model, you're building, so these boards aren't just straight Kanban systems. These handle high mix of products, and they also, are able to handle not just a straight fulfillment process, but also the interim steps between, with specific parts needing for specific products and specific products for specific customers. So these are, while you're given the concepts of, this is what we do, Hypertherm's a pretty high-tech product and also does a high mix. Would you, do you agree with that they also use these things in your high mix environment?
Absolutely. It's something that maybe I take for granted or overlook sometimes.
Yeah.
But we have just about every one of our value streams is mixed model in some respect, and we found ways to use this type of system, this visual system, regardless of the mix. And I could point you to some of these thermometer boards that have 10 or more, sometimes 20 or 30 different potential product mixes that are present. And the signaling system, while certainly becomes more complex with the number of products in the family, it works equally well regardless. And the key is that we've taken the steps to help our associates understand what this communication system is for, how it works, and also given them the opportunity to improve it when they see that it's not working for them. In fact, I was just thinking about a project that I saw a couple of months ago where in our manual systems build line, a couple of our associates that work in that area said, the signal board is working, but over the last period of time we've seen some demand increase. We realized that it could be better, and so they took it upon themselves to go off into a room and just fix it themselves without necessarily even talking to any of the leadership. And we were really proud of them for that because they took a lot of ownership of that.
Oh, wow. So not even do they, kind of prevent interruptions of flow, they also take the other side of the coin where they preempt things and fix things without the management as well. That's
right.
Powerful. Yeah. So tell us more about these visual systems and what is it about flow that makes this so powerful?
Well, I think the key point is that what we're trying to do is create this self-healing value stream where flow interruptions, we know they're going to occur, but we're trying to minimize them, and when they do occur, be able to detect them and fix them without management. And I think that's probably one of the key underlying themes is understanding why flow exists, so that when it starts to break down, we collectively put efforts into fixing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Another type of visual signal that we use, we call it a pulse point. And much as the thermometer boards give us our signals as to what we need to build next, the pulse points help us understand, are we on schedule? Are we meeting the rate of demand? And so these I've got two examples here. The first one is what I would consider to be a high-tech version of a pulse point, and this is used in one of our machining cells that makes the torch consumables. And each of the CNC machines that's in this cell has a line on this board, and you can scan down through and see that some of the cells or some of the machines are coded red, some are yellow, and some are green. And much as with the thermometer board, red means that the machine for that shift is less than 90% of its target. Yellow means it's within 10% of target, and green means it's at or above target. And so this provides our associates with some feedback, and these are constantly being updated as a set of parts are produced from each of the machines. It gives them some insight as to which parts of the cell are working well and which ones might need some help, either from a staffing perspective or perchance from a technical support perspective. But there's also examples of pulse points that are low tech as well, and it doesn't have to necessarily be on a big LCD screen. It can also be a simple whiteboard with some dry erase marker where we map out what the schedule is for the day, and this happens to be in our production cell for our less than 50 amp power supplies. So if you're familiar with our products, this is where we build our PowerMax 30s or 45s and such. And they'll map out our production goals for the day, for the shift, and then track them hour by hour to see if we're meeting them. And you can see from this first shift example, this particular team did very well that day, and they exceeded goal by 1 unit. But this is designed to provide that same kind of feedback into the cell as to whether or not they're on pace to meet demand for that day.
And Charlie, are these pulse points that you've just showed, are they for the management team of Hypertherm, or who looks at these and who does things about them when things aren't working right?
That's a great question, and it's the visual systems that we have are first and foremost primarily for our associates, with the idea that first of all, if in the case of the thermometer boards, it's providing them with information as to what to work on next, as seamlessly as possible, integrating them with our customers' demand. And then the pulse points give feedback as to how we're doing regarding schedule. So it's kind of like a GPS unit in a car. Am I on pace to get to my destination at the time I'm supposed to be at my appointment? And and the pulse points provide that information to the associates. The idea being that at any given time, someone may be behind, but there's someone else that may be able to pitch in for a few minutes and help them get back on schedule.
Right. Wow. So no manager has to step in. That's awesome. Hey, let's go to the last one. This is a big one. When you get to number 8 on operational excellence, it's really saying something, that you freed up management time to grow the business. And yeah, that sounds nice as a statement, but let's talk about some real impact of what that means in terms of people, in terms of your product, and in terms of the performance of the company. You know, let's talk about how does all this leverage business growth activities?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's really our long-term vision, is that we do free up our leadership to be offensively and strategically oriented. An example that I can share, the one I love to share, because it really impacts education, is that of our Hypertherm Technical Training Institute. You mentioned this in the beginning of the talk, Kevin, when you talked about how you know, we were running out of labor in our region, and we had to do something about that. So the origins of our Hypertherm Technical Training Institute date back to 2006, 2007. We were really experiencing some rapid growth. We had opened our Asia market, and we're very successful in that, and also in Europe and domestically as well. And what we realized as we looked at our 3-year plan is that we would have to hire about 120 new machine operators to keep up with the projected consumable demand. And then we looked at our population base, our demographics in the Upper Valley of New Hampshire. If you've ever been here, Kevin, you have, you know this is not an urban area. There are plenty of cows and sheep around. And so really the labor pool was an issue for us. So we did look at a couple of different options. We thought about outsourcing overseas. We thought about developing a supplier base further outside of the Upper Valley, but ultimately, with our goal of wanting to keep jobs in region and our commitment to our communities, we took a different path, and we partnered with the community college system both in New Hampshire and Vermont, because we're located right on the border between the two states, and set up a training institute with a significant amount of investment on our part, and the goal being that we would be able to take someone from the area who had a high school education, had some good math skills, and the right aptitude to work in a team environment, which is really important here, and be able to educate them so that they could become a machine operator in 9 weeks. So this was a full-time endeavor for someone coming into our training program, and it's been hugely successful. We've had about 400 associates enroll, and about 85% have passed our 9-week training program, and that's led to, I think, well over 350 hires into the company since 2007, and has allowed us to maintain a vast majority of the production that we needed to here in the Upper Valley. And the success of that of this program has been expanded beyond just machine operators. So now we do certain assembly positions as well, such as our PC or printed circuit board assembly and so forth. And it's just been a phenomenally successful project for us. The interesting thing about this, and how it relates back to managers not managing day-to-day operations and firefighting, is that the person who was most responsible for founding the Technical Training Institute was Jim Miller, who's our current Vice President of Manufacturing. At the time, Jim was the Director of Operations for one of our consumables teams. So his job was to run the operations for a machining organization. But because of the structure of our company, our desire to free management up to work on strategy and offense, he put a lot of his effort into founding this with help from a number of other associates. So I think this is just a great example of again, our leadership freeing themselves from day-to-day operations because of our value streams being relatively self-healing, and being able to put their efforts into strategic growth of the company.
Do you guys really consider your associates a key part of your operational excellence journey?
We do, and we put a lot of emphasis on that. And you've pointed this out to me, that the principles of operational excellence give us the process, but without the people, understanding that and believing in it, it's not going to be successful. So, something that comes to mind for me is a quote from Evan Smith, who's our president. Is he said in the past that our associates are our only sustainable competitive advantage, and I really do believe that. And I also believe that the fabric of the company reinforces that, and that we want to invest in our associates so that they can continue to contribute at an ever higher and higher level. Mm-hmm. As an example of that, I think you mentioned at the outset that we are now, as of the beginning of this year, 100% associate-owned company. It's something that we have a lot of pride in. We're still acclimating ourselves to exactly what that means. Up until this year, we were about a 30% associate-owned company, but our owners turned the remaining 70% over to us as part of our retirement package. So it's an incredible gift and trust that they've placed in the 1,400 or so associates that work at Hypertherm. And that ownership responsibility the responsibility it carries with it is really something weighty that we have to pay a lot of attention to. But the benefit long term is incredible for everyone that works here. So that's an example of our long-term benefit. And then Hypertherm also has always paid a profit sharing, and over the past 5 years, that's averaged about 18%. And I think that that includes the 6% profit sharing that we paid during the recession year of 2009. So while some companies were laying off, closing facilities, really looking at diminishing their footprint, we were able to make it through a severe downturn in our sales, not lay anyone off, and still pay out a modest profit sharing that year. It's something that we're very proud of, perhaps more proud of that than maybe some of the profit sharing years that have been significantly higher than that.
Yes. Certainly from what I've seen at Hypertherm, you guys have, you're like any other manufacturer, here you go, that has its ups and downs. But Charlie, what I want, and I know our listeners would be interested in, is something that you have is a no layoff policy. Not that you just have a policy of it, but you've actually done it. You haven't had a layoff in 40 plus years. And look at the slide here. In 2009, like every other manufacturer, there was a downturn. And yet, here's Hypertherm saying we don't lay off people when these things happen. The question always gets asked to me, well, what do you do? What do you do when this happens? How can they not have a no layoff policy? Can you tell us about that?
Right. Well, it's something that we believe very strongly in, and I think it mirrors our continuous improvement philosophy. That if you ask someone to put effort into improving their process, and then the next step is that they're out of a job, it's not going to be conducive to long-term improvement. So we've really strived to live that value, and 2009 really tested it. We kept coming back to the fact that our associates are our most valuable asset. And so what we did in 2009, when we did, as many other companies did, suffer a significant downturn in sales, is we looked at something we called the redeployment. And so we had an excess of about 110 assemblers and machine operators that were not needed to meet customer demand at that point in time. We knew that in the future we would need them, and so we looked for alternative roles for them in the company. And these ranged from working in marketing roles to understand and communicate with our customers and keep that line of communication open so that long term, once the economy did return, we'd still have that relationship, to working in the engineering labs to try and bolster our new product development, so we would have new products ready to roll out again when demand returned. We even had individuals working in our facilities teams, renovating facilities. We had individuals volunteer to those that had some automotive repair background volunteer to fix our truck and automobile fleet for us, rather than again having to outsource that. So some really creative approaches to redeployment. And this picture here shows 3 associates that I know personally that had some role in production as either a machine operator or as a production technician. During the 2009 downturn, they took new roles because they weren't working in a production role. And then each one of them has grown as a result of that and been able to take on some different roles in the company long term. And you can see that they've all done some different things after that 2009 experience. And it's provided a wonderful growth opportunity for a number of associates, as well as us being able to keep our company whole during that period. Another aspect of, I'm sorry, Kevin?
No, I was just going to say, I was going to ask about your support, just not just for the people, but for the community.
Exactly, and a unique benefit of Hypertherm that we have is our community service time as part of our corporate social responsibility. So every associate has 24 hours of paid community service time per year, and we can use that in any way that we would like in terms of a volunteer activity. So whether it's going into the schools and working in a classroom, or reading with children, working in the hospitals, any type of community service, it's up to associates to choose that. And it's a point of pride as to how that gets used amongst the teams. Right now, I think about 80% of our associates participate in some way with community service time.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So continuous improvement is obviously something that we feel pretty strongly about as well. And one of the ways I think about training and education is we train our associates to have the skills that they need to do their jobs. We educate them in the principles of operational excellence, so that they can understand their role in the value stream and how they can most effectively interact with their upstream suppliers and downstream customers. Again, that reinforces the importance of flow in the value stream. And we've got an operational excellence education program that is where we've spent a day with every production associate in the company, and also every production associate has completed at least one operational excellence improvement project in the last 18 months, and some have done more than one. So we've got a nice portfolio of projects that have been completed, documented, and reported out throughout the organization.
Wow. So Charlie, that's that's unbelievable as far as how you treat your people. But I was just going to ask, what's the impact on product and sales? Let's talk about the business side. We have a process, we have people. Let's talk about what's the impact to the products that you sell, and in your business growth. How does that all come out? How does this all add up?
Well, great point, and that I would say that the reason that we put so much effort into making sure that our value streams are self-healing is so we can spend time with our customers and understand what their needs are, and make sure that our products and our services meet those needs or exceed them, as the case may be. So we spend a lot of time. I think anyone who's familiar with Hypertherm knows that our products are high-tech, they're well-engineered, the performance is superior, and they deliver superior value. And we're always trying to provide new products that provide a better value for our customers as well. Examples of that would be, for instance, the PowerMax 105, which is the power supply located to the second to the right on this slide. That was introduced at the end of 2012, and for the same cost, it represents 5 additional amps, 15% increase in cutting speed, and about a 36-pound weight reduction over the unit it replaced. So continuous improvement is part of our product development process as well. The way we achieve that is by having leadership of the company focused on strategic growth of the business, instead of having them fixing day-to-day operations problems.
Wow, it's amazing, amazing.
And I can't forget to mention that we're striving for every one of our products to be 100% recyclable. We've been able to confirm that several of those are already there, and we're working to make sure that every product that we manufacture is recyclable. Because in the long term, we have some pretty aggressive goals for our environmental footprint in the year 2020. One of which is to become a zero landfill company, zero landfill organization.
And that's one of the things I'm really proud about is Hypertherm as well. It's quite the commitment. So we've got people, we've got process, we've got product. Let's talk about sales.
Yeah, so you've mentioned this earlier that we're a manufacturer. I always like to say that 98% of the product that Hypertherm sells is manufactured in the United States. We do have a small company in Italy that a supplier that we had partnered with for years, and when the owners were ready to get out of business, we purchased them and we've maintained that operation in Italy. So a largely U.S. manufacturer. A large fraction of our supply chain is in the U.S. and in region. Our North American sales account for about 40%, 46% of our revenues. We sell 25% into Europe, 20% into Asia, and 9% into South America, primarily through distribution centers in the Netherlands, in Shanghai and Singapore, and then Sao Paulo.
Wow, wow. That's, again, that's just one of the things that you just don't see for a U.S. company.
So at Hypertherm, I'm sharing a quote here from our VP of Manufacturing, Jim Miller. It's not that operations aren't a problem. The operations do get time; they're not ignored. It's not that we don't want to talk about it; we just don't have to. We've really put a lot of effort into making sure that the flow of value to our customers is not interrupted. We're not perfect by any stretch, and every day there's an opportunity to get better. But the effort put into engineering the operation systems is what's made, I think, has contributed to Hypertherm's success.
So what's next? What's next going forward with you guys?
Well, as you can imagine, we're not necessarily satisfied with where we are. It's a healthy discontent, and going forward, we've got to keep pushing the envelope and looking for ways to further reduce leader intervention and become more autonomous in the day-to-day operations. It's really our competitive, one of the keys to our competitive advantage. We engineer our products, we sell high-tech products. We have a lot of pride in that, and our customers see that every day. What sometimes they probably don't get a chance to see is the technology and the engineering that goes into our operations that we are just as proud of.
Very good, very good. All right, so give us the summary of all this, Charlie. What have we learned?
Yeah, well, this has been a long-standing learning process for Hypertherm, but the three things that I'd go back to is, first, understanding the principles of operational excellence is really important to every associate being able to see the flow of value to the customer. Once any one of us can see the flow, see where it's breaking down, then that begins the process of constructing self-healing value streams. And once we have embarked on that path, then our leadership becomes available to work on strategic growth. And the results of that are that we can spend more time understanding our customers' needs and ultimately providing them with solutions they value.
And you certainly have demonstrated how operational excellence has led to that top-line business growth. And again, I'm always happy to talk about Hypertherm because they've broken through that barrier of just applying lean principles, but getting them to the side of it, which means we can go forward with business growth and be successful in that business growth as a manufacturer here in the United States with a mostly U.S. supply chain. Well, Charlie, I am just, as always, happy to talk about Hypertherm and the success you guys have had following the principles of operational excellence, and thanks for sharing all of this with us. Michelle?
All right, so we do have about 10 minutes or so for questions. Some of you have already figured out how to ask a question. In the lower right-hand column or section of your screen, you're going to see a questions bar. You can go ahead and type it in there and hit send, and we will get it. And we will try to answer as many questions as we can during this webinar. If we don't get to your question, we will certainly work to get you a response after the fact. And some other quick housekeeping things while you're typing in your questions. If people have asked about a recorded version of the webinar, yes, we will make that available along with the slides from today's event. and a training certificate just showing that you've completed an hour of lean operations training. Those will be emailed out to you probably early next week. We do have a holiday here in the United States on Monday, so we'll strive for Tuesday. If you don't see an email from me, please check your junk mail folder. For some reason, my emails like to go in there sometimes. The other thing is some of you may know that we are going to give away 25 copies of Kevin's most recent book, Designed for Operational Excellence. So we will be notifying the 25 people who have won that book, and it will be just randomly drawn from the folks who are on the webinar right now. And that's it for me. Charlie and Kevin, I don't know if there are any questions on here that you'd like to answer. Let's see. It looks like the questions are still coming in. Someone wants to know if they can get a tour of our facility. We have a customer in Western New York who wants to stop by.
Customers are always welcome at Hypertherm. I think that would be my answer to that, and I would encourage them, if they have a contact with a district sales manager, to start there, and if not, they can always get in touch with myself or Michelle. I didn't put my email address anywhere on this page, but
we can include it in our email
at some point. Yeah. Happy to have customers come see us. We always learn something from you when you come to see us, so that's really valuable.
Charlie, there's a really good question here. It says, we talked about operations and manufacturing a lot, but what we really didn't talk about was the business processes or the offices, and we have not talked about that. So real quick, I know what you guys have done in terms of the office as well, but do you want to give maybe a quick synopsis and talk about what you've done in things like accounts payable?
Yeah, I would say first off that our lean and OpEx, operational excellence initiatives are more mature in our manufacturing environment, and we stand to see a lot of potential benefit as we grow those principles into our offices. So the examples that I can share with you are more point examples, and come back and visit us, or come back and see us in a couple of years, and we'll have I think a more holistic story to tell about the state of the office. But as an example, back in 2011, I believe it was, we made an acquisition of our CAM software company in Lockport, New York, and brought with them a whole host of customers that we had not had previously. And this part of the business did direct sales. So all of a sudden, our accounts payable group was seeing a vast increase in the amount of invoices that they were having to process. And as a result of that, they were somewhat overwhelmed and had to, first of all, thought maybe we should just hire some new people in or bring in some temporary labor. But ultimately, were able to step back and look at their process, realize that between the number of accounts payable specialists, they were all doing different functions and had different ways of going about their work. So they created some standard work, implemented some very simple visual signals and systems, and ultimately took their capacity from a point where they were in need of hiring a new associate to having an extra associate. Wow. that could be shared with other parts of the business that were experiencing some pretty heavy demand as well. So that's a nice story that I like to tell about, again, applying some of these principles in the office and taking advantage of them.
And again, it's from when I've been to Hypertherm too. It's the same. While the design might be different design guidelines, the end result is you can stand in that office and look at and know, is this accounts payable department on time, or are they ahead or behind to the workload for this service right now? So I was very impressed with the work you've done. Even though, as you say, it might be a start, I think it's well on its way as a start to in the office, and will make its way into engineering, into other areas of the business processes as well.
Absolutely.
All right, another question we have here. You mentioned that you do not have a production planning department. How do you schedule production of non-inventory items?
Excellent question. So that could fall into a couple of categories. So I spoke primarily about our manual systems and our consumables, which are build to stock. That's our inventory. That's the inventory model that we chose. And a non-stock item, or an example of a non-stock item, would be one of our mechanized power supplies, or perhaps one of our water jets, or one of our laser cutting systems. These are larger, typically higher capital investments. So we don't necessarily want to hold those in inventory and have our capital held up. So we build those to order, and we use a signaling method that is similar to the thermometer boards that you saw, but it's basically a load leveling or Hijunka approach. Again, where each order has a card assigned to it. Those cards can be printed depending on the location of the producing value stream or cell, and then they're arranged to signal associates what they're working on next, and those signal boards are placed in the cells where the production is made. So again, it's really us trying to connect demand with the producing cell or the producing value stream as effectively as possible. And we try to use that same kind of approach of a visual signal. It's just a little bit of a different approach when we're talking about a scheduled build for a non-production, a non-inventory item.
Michelle,
I had a picture. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Michelle, do we have time for one more? Or?
We do. We have time for a couple of more questions, okay, depending, I guess, on how long the answers are. But the next question, what kind or brand of ERP system do you use, and how do you interface the ERP with our Kanban system?
Wow. Well, we are an Oracle company, or we use Oracle as our ERP system. And without going into a lot of detail, we have found ways to take advantage of the eKanban module, as well as using the min-max module that are resident in Oracle to meet our needs. And if you are in that position where you're with Oracle, I highly suggest that you speak with them about how to do this, how to take advantage of it, because we found it to be really helpful.
Okay. There's actually a question I think that I personally find intriguing, Charlie, which is somebody has asked, like how long does this operational excellence stuff at Hypertherm take? And when I first met you guys back in 2000 and stuff, you guys had a great culture. You had a great, you had all that people thing, and I think I'll let you answer it. But I know you were on kind of a lean journey, and most companies were on kind of a lean journey. But there was a significant breakthrough at some point where you guys kind of broke through the lean thinking part of it, which was just get cost effective and eliminate waste, and flipped this whole thing into more of the operational excellence side of it. So I guess our listeners asked the question, if we just looked at that operational excellence side of it, how long has it been, and how was that for Hypertherm? Has it been 10, 20 years, or has it been, I'll let you answer, but the more shorter time frames?
Yeah, well, certainly I would say that continuous improvement has been a part of Hypertherm's DNA or fabric for probably since day one, 47 years ago, 48 years ago. I've been with Hypertherm 19 years, and it was one of the things that attracted me to the company in the first place. Mm-hmm. I would say that the sort of the shift or the bellwether moment that you're referring to, Kevin, occurred in probably 2010 to 2011 when we realized that lean was working very well for us. But we needed more of a destination and some guiding principles to work with. We were growing, our business teams were multiplying, and we knew that each one of them needed a goal or an objective, but they would all probably end up moving towards that objective at different rates. So the principles of OpEx provided that for us, so that each team knows the direction they're heading. They move along that path at a rate that they can support depending on their resources and the demands that are being placed upon them, but we're all moving in the same direction and speaking the same language. So and that has been, I guess, since about 2010, 2011.
Yeah, it's quite impressive to see that shift happen within a company, to go from a lean viewpoint to more of an operational excellence viewpoint where they leverage their lean value streams to achieve operational excellence and business growth. So that's a great question from our audience, and I just wanted to bring that one out.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. You do see on your screen, we do have our website, hypertherm.com, and another good area to keep the conversation going is our new Hypertherm Spark blog. If you go to hyperthermspark.com, there is a posting on lean and operational excellence. Actually, our president, Evan Smith, who Charlie mentioned during the presentation, has some words about lean there, and you're able to ask questions, et cetera, if you go there. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.